there's someone in your market succeeding today in the exact same thing that you're doing. Have you taken a minute to figure out why they may be having more success than you?
Welcome to the Leadership Podcast. I'm Chris Johnson. I'm the CEO at Leadership, and I've got Matt Symes here with me, CEO of Simplicity Design, a co-founder of Leadership. Today, we want to get into the S word. No, not that S word, the strategy word. In business, we often are exposed to this word. We often use this word. I'm sure we all understand it means a set of actions or a set of decisions that we're going to execute on. But I have seen so many various instances of it and applications of it. I want to unpack that with you, Matt. I want you to kind of help us understand, in decades of doing this work, what good strategy means and how it should be viewed. Because I think a lot of organizations struggle to get the value out of the word and the effort that they put into the time around, a strategy meeting or a strategic plan that may sit on the shelf and such. So let's jump right into that.
Strategy is the most bastardized term, I think, in the business lexicon. It is so badly done that Richard Rommelt wrote a book called Good Strategy, Bad Strategy, where if you get a chance to listen to it on audio, it's fantastic because he's such a cantankerous old strategist. He's like, just strategy is shit now. People are just terrible at it. And his good strategy, bad strategy is literally good dog, bad dog. And he, one of the quotes in there that I always bring up is, the first natural advantage of doing good strategy is that nobody else has done one. And they don't expect you to have one either. And so strategy, I think, is a purposeful, intentional set of decisions aimed at helping you become the business you want to be or the organization you want to be. Strategy, there's not like, hey, we're going to have a marketing strategy and we're going to have a people strategy. And look, I stop using strategy when we get into the capability areas. Those are a set of processes, a set of, the engine of the organization you're going to change. But strategy is about deciding where are you going to focus that energy? And so good strategy starts with stepping back and looking at the business holistically. Just being really honest with yourself. I think we mentioned on a previous podcast that a business is like this organism that exists in an ecosystem. And I don't want to be too, esoteric about this. I'll just be really blunt. You don't control how well you perform. You only can control how well you interact in the environment you're delivering in. So it's really important that you take a step way back and you go, hey, what's going on in the world? What's going on in my market? What are my capabilities to deliver value to that market? Now, what's my business going to do within that ecosystem? Sadly to say, you don't have more control than the world and the market. Look down south right now. We're going to have a major political change. Your opinion on that, my opinion on that is irrelevant. It is going to have consequences for almost all businesses. Do you understand what kind of consequences that's going to have? That's a world change, right? There are all kinds of market changes going on depending on where you deliver, and there are all kinds of ways to deliver value to that market. So when are you stepping back? When are you stepping back and going, hey, what am I creating? Let's get really clear. What's my winning aspiration? Where am I going to play? How am I going to win?
Yep.
Have I articulated that? And then have I articulated the gap between what I say I want and what I am? And all too often, people spend almost no time doing that, and they spend all their time arguing over a bunch of stuff they could do in the business. Look, if you spend the right amount of time articulating the gap and the gain between where you want to be and where you are, what you need to do becomes really clear. It's just nobody spends enough time up front, right? And look, we could go a lot deeper on this because strategy is about a set of decisions that you're saying yes to. And most importantly, a set of things that are really good to do that you're not going to do right now. You're going to put them in the hopper.
Yeah. I love how you say spend time arguing about the things you could do. Because we've all been through a strategic plan session. You get in a boardroom, pre-COVID, maybe you get in a boardroom and We put all our ideas on sticky notes and they go up on the board. And out of that exercise, we get a document. And there's no guidelines coming out of that on how to execute on that document. When should we check it? When should we revisit it? It's a 5-year strategic plan or it's a 3-year strategic plan. And we still see tenders in the market all the time to come and sit with an organization and do a 3-year strategic plan. So
useless.
When you talk about zooming out, like at what cadence is best practice to revisit this idea of what you've chosen to work on in the next window of time?
There's a lot of work done into how long the human brain can actually conceptualize activity. Much longer than 90 days, we stop understanding with any sort of visceral understanding what needs to be done. So we can't get our hands around it anymore. So you make year-long commitments. Yeah. You don't break those down to a 90-day sprint, probably not able to conceptualize what actually needs to be done. And so, I'll say often, borrow it from the military, amateurs talk about strategy, professionals talk about logistics. So let's spend a lot of time figuring out where we want to go and what's getting in the way of us being that company. Okay. So often 10Xing is the same amount of effort as 2Xing is. It's just you do different things. So where do we want to go? What do we want it to look like? Have we articulated it properly? Then let's break down what has to be true in order for us to be that company. Then we take it the next step and go, okay, if that's what needs to be true over the next 12 months, what do we need to focus on in the next 90 days? And a really good rhythm, 2 days a quarter, half a day a month, you get into a rhythm and you anchor that in with a weekly meeting. So whether you do strategy with us at Leadership, my hope is that after you listen to this podcast, you're saying, okay, what is my strategic cadence? What's my rhythm? I prefer cadence because it has that insinuation of a beat.
Reoccurring, yep.
Yeah, that you're moving on. Yep. And what I want to see you do is 2 days a quarter to make the big decisions. And the first day of that, you're making no decisions. What you're doing is clearly articulating who you want to be when you grow up and clearly aligning on where you are now and then clearly aligning on all the things you might do. Then by the end of that day, you want to sleep on that. Come back the next morning and go, okay, in what order do we need to do these things? And then eventually you want to leave with a plan, a portfolio of activity that you're committing to. As some people, EOS system calls them rocks. And what aggravates me about the EOS system, right? The EOS system is fantastic for getting you to prioritize. Yep. It is horrific at helping you execute the priorities. And that's a strong statement, but I have no problem standing behind it because if you just get to what you want to do, but you haven't articulated how you're going to do it. And when I say that, how you're going to do it, I mean, are you using an existing process that you have and you're just going to spend more time on it? Are you hiring or partnering outside? So is it in the business? Is it a resource bit? Are you skilling someone up? Are you hiring someone? Are you leaving it to a person to accomplish it? Or are you working on the business to change form, fit, or function of how you execute that process so that it goes faster, better with less resources? How are you actually going to tackle that? And that's what I want to spend day 2 on. I want to spend day 2 on getting really, really clear on the commitments and how we're going to execute on those commitments. That way you have an entire leadership team that can make way for the things that need to be done. And then they can also play blocker because as soon as you go to start that sprint, that 90-day sprint, there's going to be 10 things that hit you that you could do, that you might want to give minutes to. Yep. And you can't give those minutes to them, right? So that's at 2 days. Then you get to half a day a month, which is really checking in on progress. Because much more than 4 weeks without backing up, and you start to get lost in your own mess. And then I'll translate it back to the 1 week. And I want 1 hour a week where the leadership team gets in. And this is where I translate what I want to do to what I'm doing. So this is where I translate the outcomes I want to the activities I'm committed to. And this is like tactical. It's minutes that you're given. And invariably, what you thought you could do is not going to meet first contact with reality. You're not going to get past it. So the reality is you're going to go, oh, I thought this was going to take me 2 hours. It's actually going to take me 4. Okay, how do I move the schedule to the left? Right? Human optimism is a wonderful thing. Many of us wouldn't get out of bed in the morning without it.
Yeah.
It's a terrible thing when it comes to planning. Right? It's the planning fallacy.
You talk a lot about that in terms of what's the quote you use, or you stole, planning is indispensable, but plans are useless.
Yeah.
Right? What a stark difference between, gathering in a boardroom once a year or once every 5 years and arguing about the things that we could do versus actually coming out of that session with a plan for the next 90 days. And I think that the biggest thing for people that haven't been exposed to this framework around strategy is that, it's 12 days a year. How could I be out of my business for 12 days a year? Well, I think the question probably should be reframed is how can you not? Because if you think about, your history, the last 2 years, 3 years, what have you thought you could do and what did you actually get done? So the monthly and the weekly is really, really interesting forcing function to keep you on track. And it's just such a stark change from how we all thought about strategy and what it was. But it gets results. It absolutely gets results because you're aligning on what you need to do and you're checking in monthly and weekly, holding each other accountable and your leadership team to move that bar forward on those things you agreed were the most important.
And what you'll see with organizations that don't. I mean, look, imagine getting in the room in January 2020 and making a 3-year plan.
Yeah.
How'd that work out for you come March?
Yeah,
like the world changes, the world moves, everything moves. Arguably, it always moved too quick. We just didn't really see it. Yeah. But now it is certainly moving too quick. I mean, we've got elections in countries that are going to change leaders. We have wars that are going on. We have all kinds of stuff in this world that is going on that is going to have a direct impact on your business. And there's lots of people who go, look, like that stuff doesn't impact my business. I run a massage therapy clinic. It really does impact your business. I want you to think right now about the discretionary income that people have for about 90% of the population. Okay? More than 50% of Canadians right now and a higher number of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
That is almost twice as many people living paycheck to paycheck than 3 years ago. That is going to have a massive impact on your customer base. Right? I know that if you run a massage therapy clinic and you're not paying attention to the fact that, look, we're getting close to January and when benefits roll over, well, there's a time in November and December that you need to remind people to use them up. And there's a time in January where you need to benefit from the motivation that comes with the fresh start effect of all the commitments that barely anybody keeps with their New Year's resolutions. But for business, those are time periods. And if you're not thinking strategically, not acting in 90-day sprints, you're not connecting long-term to mid-term to immediate term. And that's the point of strategy. The point of strategy is to make sure that the minutes you're committing to activities, both in and on the business, are intentional. They're going to give you a business result. So I would argue that if you don't do strategy, why are you bothering to show up and work? Because you're likely working on the wrong thing.
Yeah, totally. And when you think about, like, I love how you frame the outside world and how impactful it is to your business. We often talk about what can you control in a world where there's so many things you can't control. And one of the probably the most confusing or least known metrics in a business is the improvement rate. Like that's what you can control. You can improve, increase, lowering your cost of delivery. You can improve many things in your business to protect or shield you from the things that are happening in the market, in the country, or whatever, right? And I often find people just, that everybody plays the blame game, right? Well, people just aren't interested in my stuff anymore. Well, no, they are. They just can't afford it, or there's so many other things that impact that. So,
think about that analysis. Think about when you're looking at the world and the market, but then think about looking internally at how you're delivering to that. And so it's about making that connection. And you think about there's someone in your market succeeding today in the exact same thing that you're doing. Have you taken a minute to figure out why they may be having more success than you? And look, good strategy is not a judgment. So many people are so scared of being judged for their performance. Now, look, it is, and every part of everything you're doing could be done better. Now, which area are you focusing on, and how quickly can you learn from the world, the market, and your competitors so that you can make some alterations internally so that you can have a business that is thriving? And look, at the end of the day, for a small business owner, strategy is about creating a business that serves them so they don't have to continually be a servant to their business. And the only way you do that is by creating a thriving business that works within its ecosystem. When are you taking the time to go, how am I doing with that?
And the thing that I think that is so challenging for people is just, it's Groundhog Day, right? It just feels like Groundhog Day. You get up and go to work and deliver and do the best for your team. But the idea of actually deciding and building a 90-day plan is so foreign to so many businesses. And I'm really excited about the fact that, we have this opportunity to bring it to as many people as we can find in the journey, because it is life-changing. Like, again, not to get over dramatic about it, but we have so many customers that have gone through this process that now have a thriving business that works for them. Yep. They're not you talk about a servant. Like, we run into so many entrepreneurs that are being tortured by their business.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Like it's just, I got into business because I'm good at doing something. And now the thing that I'm good at doing, that I love doing, is really, it's killing me because I have all this other stuff to do as well. So they don't actually see themselves often as entrepreneurs. So bringing the leadership team together to actually co-create, it takes a load off that one's entrepreneur that thinks that they've got to make every decision and own every decision. And I think there's just so much power in kind of zooming out and thinking about this differently.
I think you've hit on the most important reason to do strategy. It's cathartic. It's almost a relief, right? And you'll be shocked by how little you have to do in order to make your business exceptional. We worked with one guy last year, okay? 900% increase in the bottom line. He changed 4 things over 12 months. That's it. He changed 4 things, and he took care of about 8 to 12 niggly things.
Yeah.
They took like less than a day to resolve the other 8 to 12. He changed 4 things in his business to have 900% increase in net profit. We went from a business with him that, can I afford to feed my 4 kids, to a business that now we're talking with investment advisors on how he protects some of his wealth within 12 months. That's the impact that good strategy can have on a small business, because the benefit of being small or micro is you can make dramatic changes really quickly. And so regardless of where you do strategy, who you do strategy with, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that you do it. Step back 2 days a quarter, half a day a month, 1 hour a week. Start building that business that you want. Start building a business that serves your best life.
That's a great example of, and I hope the people that are listening that are struggling to think that they could get out of their business for 12 days a year, hear that. Is 12 days working on your business? Could you generate that kind of return if you stayed in your business those 12 days? Absolutely not.
No.
Because you're not looking at where the real problems are. You're just grinding through every day and trying to do the best you can for your customers. So, no, I appreciate you kind of unpacking that, because I think the word gets, as you said, gets misused desperately, and I think people really this is the way to build the business that you've dreamed that you could build. Right? It isn't through getting up every morning and grinding through delivery, swinging more hammers or seeing more patients. It just isn't, and that may be challenging for people to hear, but this is the reality of hundreds of clients that we've worked with that actually now have the business of their dreams because they took those 12 days, they stepped back, and they actually thought about what they needed to do in that kind of reverse engineering, that path to the business of the future. So if you'd like to learn more about what we're doing here and how to do good strategy with us, check out leadership.com. We've got a bunch of assets there and downloads, and reach out to us on LinkedIn as well. Thanks. If you enjoyed this episode and want to help us grow, please share it with your friends and colleagues. This would mean the world to us.